Do you have an addiction to self-improvement? The thing is, it's pretty easy to start having this almost Novocaine idea of self-help, self-development, spirituality, and almost be almost using it, all the videos on it and the advice as a way of almost Novocaine numbing. It's its own kind of addiction, right? And sometimes you're constantly healing, and what that's doing is it's telling you you're always needing to be better. And so then that makes you're never quite good enough for anything. So you'll even have thoughts in moments of fear, like you'll think, well, I've been healing so much, but I'm still not good enough. Like you'll have that when you're in positions where your self-esteem is tested. And that's because the idea that you're never there keeps you from realizing how far you've come, or from even just, it keeps you in a I'm never good enough kind of perfectionism. So just be aware of your addiction to self-help makes you think you always need to be better, instead of being able to be grateful for who you are right now and how far you've come. And I think it's important to realize this because I've gone through these periods of, it's like I needed a coach to validate who I was so I felt good enough to release my book, pretty much. Because publishing books, it's very vulnerable. You're going to have a lot of public exposure. You're going to have criticism. You're just going to have a lot to deal with. So there's often this idea that you need a book coach or a coach to validate you personally or your book. So there's you start to be like, I need to have this in order to then be ready to be published, right? And then, for instance, I for a while I was going to coaches and telling them about my book, and then they were not ever asking questions about it. They were focusing on other kind of personality, trauma, and going into that whole child. They love to talk about childhood. And so I would take that in as nobody cares about that book. You're not going to be ready to publish it because people hate it. They aren't intrigued. They don't care. You sent it to them. They didn't even read it. Like, it was actually magnifying the very issue that I was coming to them for, because I had these beliefs about I need to be ready for this book. And then when people wouldn't care when I talk about it, then it was putting me in this more doubt and more invalidation and fear, because again, I'm looking for this kind of healing journey to be this magic pill I take, and this person's going to validate me, and then that'll be fine. But see, you have to, in your healing journey, it's not about the mentors, it's not about the coaches, it's about yourself, and realizing what you secretly fear and hope to be, and realizing that if you have that hang up, you're going to get it reflected back to you in the people that you meet. Because if I'm sure about my book, and usually often I am, I don't really care if someone's not interested. I usually just think, well, they're boring. That's weird they're not interested. Or I just think, oh, it's not for them. They're not the audience. So, but I realized, because I was in a vulnerable place on the cusp of getting ready to be exposed, published, that I was so vulnerable about my book that I probably talked about it in a way that was basically saying, please validate me, instead of, it's great, check it out if you want. And so the healing I needed to do was not be seeking validation for a book from coaches that aren't book coaches. Because they're not book coaches. You hire them to read your book and give you manuscript development advice. So that's what you should be doing. You should not be like, oh, you know what, I think I'm going to go to a tantric sex coach because I'm worried about releasing a book about it's a neurotica book, coming of age. So it's about sex, and what I need to, in order to feel good about this sex book, I need to go see a tantric sex therapist, and maybe then I won't have this kind of fear that men reading it are going to judge me. But no, that actually amplified the fear. Because I went to him, he didn't ever care about the book, which then amplified my fear, which is like that no one cares about it. So it's so interesting when I look back at how I was trying to get validation for it. From that guy, from another guy another man coach that was, again, I remember telling him about the books I was working on. And I remember having the unstated need that I always, when I mention it, it's because I want somebody to say, oh, could I read it? But of course, I don't say that. I just hope that they'll like the pitch. Because I was actually secretly trying to vet how good my pitch was with them. But it's like, again, you need to get a straightforward coach that's for what you want to do that. Instead of be trying to get therapeutic people to care about that. Even though to me, the reason it made sense to me, because to me the book is so much of a therapeutic kind of thing to even write and to be exposed. So to me, that's kind of the crux of a lot of the fear of coming up, of being seen, really. So it does relate to psychology and therapy and all of that. But people just were making that connection, and I wasn't making it. Because the thing about coaches is they're in their own thing where they have their own little program, and they want you to do that program. Sometimes they can get really rigid with it, like this is what we do. We look at your childhood, we do this, blah blah blah, and it makes sense and it's very useful. But they got their own agenda, and then you've got your agenda, which you're trying to get them to kind of be unorthodox and look at, like, my secret need was I needed them to read that book and to talk to me about the blocks in being seen with this book. But that's a lot to ask. And then, like, a book coach is just you could give that book to a book coach. They're just going to be focused on the writing. So I was trying to have this merge of, can I please have you read this and see this, and then kind of help me with my psychological blocks with it, like, because it's already so. But there's not, like, the coaches tend to be very rigid with what they're going to do. The book coaches are like, I'm gonna go chapter by chapter. I'm gonna give you a broad and detailed brushstroke of developmental edits. And then the therapists are like, well, we're gonna talk about your childhood. You're gonna do some journaling, and then we're gonna do some somatic exercises or limited belief work. And all of that is very beneficial. But there's a part of me that was seeking a need that wasn't really being met, because there was this idea that I just had to be healed in order to do something, in order to have a book that's published. But that's the limited belief right there. How you feel about your book and yourself is what other people are going to feel, even if it's completely subconscious. So if you feel unseen and you feel like you want to get this book out to be seen, and then there's people just that don't care, that's not that's not a representative of the audience and the world. Like, it is to a point, but like, you're only concentrating on that because that's your fear in the first place. So I realized I had this addiction to self-help and the coaching world, and then I was getting a lot of that. Just, they had no regard for really the experience that I was trying to get out of coaching. And then that reinforced the idea of, when you show this book to people don't care, they don't like you, they want you to be the funny girl or whatever. And so it was very revealing to me. And the real work that has helped me is to actually work on my own fears about the book, and to not be needing another person's to validate it, but to just to just kind of rework my subconscious fears that are associated with being seen, being humiliated, being criticized. And those people can give me that and did help me, but they can only help you so much. And it's a cliche that you've got to help yourself, but it's very easy to rely on mentors, coaches, therapists, and to have this idea that they're going to save you, and you've got to get out of that. You've got to get out of that. But I also think that coaches become coaches because they're trying to improve their own self-concept and feel like they are somebody they're trying to get control and have a good self-image as well. So they're mostly concerned with how you reflect back that they're a great coach, and sometimes they're not actually listening. I mean, they're trying to listen, and they're listening only so far as they've got their kind of little formula, and they're trying to like put you in a certain category and help you from that. Character structures and somatics, those kinds of things. But it's like, okay, well, their needs are just like your needs, and they've got their own idea of what they're trying to get. They're trying to feel better from being a coach or therapist, and you're trying to feel better by getting knowledge about yourself and getting and healing. And they're just another human in the world. They're just another human. They don't have a special secret sauce. They're not even an authority. You are the best authority on you and your book and everything on your healing. You're the best authority on that. So cultivate self-trust, and then you're going to realize that actually you heal from that. And yes, these people all help you. You learn from all of them. You can also learn just as much from a non-coach, but just a friend or a person that you meet, a romantic person. You can have so much healing from just connecting to people, but trying to connect and hoping that somebody that has the authority. No, you are the authority. Don't outsource your own opinions and thoughts to another. I mean, it's great to learn from them. You can learn so much and get a lot of insight, but just don't make them your God or your savior, because they're not. You're your own. I hope this was helpful.